Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Major League Gaming here in Washington, D.C. Buried in mint wheat.
Yeah.
It's Idra versus HuK. Yeah, man, I am so pumped. Idra, you and I were just screaming to each other like that right before we went live because we are going directly into probably, if players were action figures, these are the two that people would want to have hang out together.
Hey, I like that one. I
like
like
that one.
That's
true.
Yeah, just don't take Idra and pull him apart and cut his little rubber band.
And give him a Ninja Turtle arm because that would be very hard to micro.
It'd be this is the winner bracket, not of course, the grand final, but the two guys that are left in the winner bracket.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Making it this far, we always talk about it in terms of a player and where they want to be, their position on the brackets. And one thing that's so important is when you have that upper bracket advantage, you haven't lost a game yet, or series yet. It just puts you into a different mindset, a different approach to what you can do and how you can play, or you just do what you do and know that you have that get out of jail free card. It's going to allow you to basically drop a series. No one wants to do it, but still then win the tournament.
But what's really nice for both of these players, they are guaranteed to be in the top three as they are in the winner's bracket final, ignoring the prize money. I mean, even both of them are getting $1,000 at the bare minimum. Knowing that even if you lose, you don't have to try to march through the loser's bracket, that is very reassuring for a lot of players. I mean, Pain User did unfortunately just get knocked out of the tournament by Ruby after having 7 rounds in a row in the loser's bracket. But I mean, even those players like Tyler, like HuK, are pretty damn far forward in that loser's bracket. So HuK and Idra have an even bigger advantage over them, so a lot of comfort going into this match.
You're right. You've got to have that stamina to be able to make it through all those matches. And, you know, maybe for a guy like Pain User, young, kind of newer to the tournament scene, that's exactly what he needs. Like, hey, I can walk away from here. I played 7 matches in the loser's bracket. Tough matches, eliminated great players. That's a solid achievement to walk forward with.
Absolutely. And, I mean, his games versus Druby were so close. I walked over at the very last game, and Druby had over 60 workers in the final attack. Almost the entire map was mined out. Barely lost. So Pain User, who of course was eliminated first from this tournament, managed to work his way back in and had 7 strong rounds in a row. Now we have HuK versus Idra. We have not gotten to see HuK's PvZ in a tournament in a very, very long time.
And high-profile Zerg, he will be playing as well. I'm not sure what the first map is. Do you know?
I have absolutely no idea. It's Zelnaga Caverns. I love that map.
Yeah.
That is a great map to begin on.
I really like it too, as well.
I mean, you get so much space. I mean, you're a Zerg player. I mean, you feel how much time you have, how much space you have to work with. It's not like Steps of War where you're about to cry at all points in time.
Plus, I like the back door.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love it. It's one of my favorite things in StarCraft.
I mean, the Zerglings can easily do counterattacks there. Banelings can hide themselves there.
Like it. It makes me excited.
So we are going into Zelnaga Caverns right now. Just inviting both the players to the game. Now, I think HuK, I've traditionally seen him do a little bit more of the warp gate, 3 or so warp gates into the expand build. A lot of times in the original Brood War, you would see players try to get that Nexus down as fast as possible. But in StarCraft 2, the Sentry is really the big unit that you need as fast as possible to block Banelings, to control Zergling movement, to control Roaches. So delaying that expansion ends up being okay.
It's so important. I like what you say there, and especially something that HuK is going to have to watch out for. He knows that opponent he's going up against is so powerful and even daunting. But another thing that I like about HuK is that he is such an easygoing guy, and I like to point. I think that guys that just have fun with the game they generally have like a good measure of success, and that guy is HuK at this tournament. I'm really proud of him though, just that people said, oh, well, rally's a fluke. Look at the seedings. We had some issues here and there. For him to be in this position, I think people should really listen up to that. I think it's a solid call from HuK.
Definitely. And I mean, HuK has had a pretty brutal path into this tournament, having to go through Greetorp, Druby, and Tyler, and now Idra in the finals. And I do want to continue to emphasize that fact about HuK, the fact that he's just laid back, and he's very embracing of all the situations he's in. He doesn't even think of himself as like the best player in the world. He's always asking players for advice, and when he loses games, I mean, we've even seen Idra lose games, and Idra tends to say, oh, well, that's a terrible strategy. You'll never get far doing that. But HuK says, God, I can't believe you beat me that badly. I got to figure out how to not make that happen. And he literally says it like that. I've seen him do it in private practice games with other players. So going into these games in the finals, he's just himself so much, and I think that's going to really help him through. Idra, on the other hand, just has such insane tournament experience. I think he's just going to be able to play his norm too.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what he should do. Now, is HuK going to do anything crazy and wild like KiwiKaki did? You know, I say no, and I think it was even evident in the KiwiKaki versus HuK game that we saw at MLG. We saw HuK with a very standard level of play. Kiwi extending himself out a little bit. I think being a little fancy, and you know, in the end, I don't expect to see that from HuK against Idra.
Now, I think this is going to be the test of who just has better, solid fundamentals of play. And I'd also like to give a little gift to the viewers out there. It is currently 2:36 p.m. We are going to be having matches all the way to 7 is when the grand final is scheduled. We are going to be doing more and more and more matches as time goes on. So this is absolutely not one of the last matches to come. We still have all the losers bracket games. I even see Select versus Slush playing against one another right now. Og is setting up against Drewby. So we will be jumping into some of those matches right after HuK versus Idra.
All right, well, I saw the invites over on our player screen, so we're going to get this one started in a little bit. You know, Sean, seems like an appropriate time to ask you. So far, we've seen a lot of matches, some short, some long, some exciting, some standard. What has been your favorite so far?
Ooh, now there's an interesting question. I would probably vote for the KiwiKaki barely able to win Dark Templar play. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna divert the question to you for now. What's been your favorite game? I'll be thinking about it and not listening to your answer.
That certainly was good. I like it. I think even Idra said it. The Immortal Rush with the Warp Prism was probably the best game that I saw. I mean, anytime I see a blob of Marines die to a bunch of Banelings, I'm like, greatest game ever. But I've got to go ahead and go with that last game from KiwiKaki with the Immortal Warp Prism. That was really solid. And as Idra said, I hadn't seen it before. You know, when you get a guy like Idra, like you, says, that's the first time I've seen that, you know. Again, people should listen because...
Some big mad props to KiwiKaki.
Yeah, big mad props.
And now that I've had time to reflect, I think that my favorite series thus far has still been QXC versus Idra. Even though Idra was able to pull through on that win, I'm just increasingly impressed by the way that players in general are able to make the game go on longer and longer and think of more clever, innovative strategies. Ravens with Hunter-Seeker missiles, the rate at which QXC expanded, that composition of getting that many Thors and Marines and how he was able to micro against the Banelings, that's the sort of play that even kind of like KiwiKaki's play, even if you haven't seen it before, it is so stealable. KiwiKaki's little Warp Prism thing, that's the sort of build that's going to work once in a tournament in a lifetime, and it's great that KiwiKaki pulled it off on the big stage, but I like builds that I can steal and go home and do to other people.
Right. Those are exciting builds, effective nonetheless as well. And before we do get started, as we have both players in the lobby, of course, a big shout out to all the gaming communities who are supporting StarCraft 2, supporting MLG, supporting the players, the teams, etc. You know, Reddit and gaming and StarCraft, NeoGAF, something awful. TeamLiquid.net, Gosu Gamers. You know, thanks and go and check out those threads and spread the word. We appreciate you guys supporting gaming and this awesome competitions, these great games, because we got another one coming up right here.
Yeah, I mean, these games wouldn't be half of what they are without the community. I mean, just having all the fans out there, creating all the signs. I see the crowd out there holding up and cheering. Hello, crowd, I shall give you a wave. And crowd, I would like to ask you a favor. If you'd be so kind as to give a cheer for your favorite player, we are going directly into Game 1 of the winner's bracket final between HuK and Idra. Idra, the bad boy of gaming. HuK is so determined. Look at him in his hoodie with ghosts written on the front, trying to strike fear into his opponent's heart. Game 1 on Xel'Naga Caverns.
Oh, day. This is going to be a pretty good series, I believe. You know, will we see a 2-0, 3-0, 3-0? That might happen. A 2-1 as we do some simple mathematics in our heads. And starting us out, we've got Idra playing as the blue Zerg in the northeast 1 o'clock position. And then we have HuK down in the corner in the 7 o'clock position as the red Protoss. Again, we did mention that HuK versus Kiwi, and I think it's actually a good game or series to talk about, the finals from Rally, because it really was sort of fancy versus standard. And I haven't seen in any of the games that HuK has played, anything too crazy with what with what he's been going. So I think Idra really is probably speaking true when he says, now that I beat Kiwi Kaki, I'm going to be really comfortable versus HuK.
Definitely, definitely, because Idra is the sort of player who wants the game to go on longer because he just wants to get to the point where lots of decision has to be made, so he will make the correct ones. And as we see, HuK is arriving here at the natural expansion, just doing a little bit of mineral mining, going to deny about 5 minerals from that expansion. He's going to poke up the ramp. He's going to see if there's any drone coming, doesn't spot one. HuK really does not want to let his opponent throw down that natural hatch, and it looks like Idra already prepared, throwing down a spawning pool.
Spawning pool is going down on 15. He's going to probably get this guy out here. Of course, HuK is going to try to deny the expansion too. As the drone comes down and he's doing his little crazy dance there, he'll go ahead and continue the crazy dance as the hatch will try to go down at the front. Gateway being built here for HuK, and he'll just continue to work on his open game and try to stop this. He did manage to get the pylon in as soon as it hit, and another Idra's like, not again.
Seriously, HuK now has a lot of freedom to throw down a cybernetics core before he ends up building a zealot, because he knows his opponent will either end up attacking this pylon. Whoa, it looks like he canceled it. Now that is a very clever play by HuK. Went back into Idra's main, saw the queen getting started, saw the lings getting started, and just cancels the pylon, gets that money back, and now he's back to blocking it. He is getting that cybernetics core at his front. Zealot will be starting shortly, and extra gas going down for HuK.
So really not delayed at all in comparison to what he saw in the last series versus Kiwi Kaki. He didn't have the money when the first window of opportunity came up, so he did have to chase that guy away. And here we're going to have our first 2 lings going to make his way back. And this is smart, check to make sure, where did that probe exit from? Did we get anything crazy back here? And he's just going to go at least to the edge and call it good on that one. And now we've got a probe. Well, interesting. What is, he's just kind of checking things out. Wasn't sure where we were going to come from there. But Warp Gates has started now. Second gateway is down as well, so the units are going to start coming out.
Weirdly enough, a Stalker coming out from HuK, and we have seen this play from him before where he just gets a Stalker, maybe 2 Zealots, sometimes just 1 Stalker, 1 Zealot, and just attacks the Zerg. As he's running up here, he sees, there goes the probe. He sees pretty much nothing but drones, sees very little Zergling speed, has yet to even be started for Idra, and trying to look around, doesn't look like there are any Roach Warrens as well, and HuK knows this. He's just going to get a small number of units. He's going to push and put a lot of pressure on Idra right from the get-go.
In terms of options and things to do here for Idra, he's still got a lot of opportunity here. We got a couple lings going to swing down and check out the natural. In the meantime, we have a Zealot and a Stalker making their way up, checking the Xel'Naga Tower, and these lings are actually going to get into the base uncontested and get a nice snapshot. The spy camera's out. They know everything that's going on here. They might even snipe off a couple of probe before. No, 0 of them. As he is going to have a couple now. Now we do have the push coming up here by HuK. He's going to immediately come in with the Zealot and the Stalker. Spinecrawler's down, but only 50%.
And it looks like trying to get some shots off at the Queen. There's some Zerglings are popping out. HuK is genuinely not too concerned. Those Zerglings in the main, I do not know if they are doing much of anything at this point, because the attack is where most of Idra's focus is. Trying to pick off some more units, does manage to get a good amount down. And the Stalkers are just continuing to be rallied by HuK. He knows that they are faster than the Zerglings without the speed, so he has no reason to halt that.
And the Roach Warren has just started over here for Idra, so he's going to have a little time where he's going to have to do battle with these Zerglings and be really careful. Of course, we got the Spinecrawler up, and that will help a lot. And we got a probe out for the Nexus down below in HuK, and he is going to drop that as well. But as one of the things we said HuK is good at, the standard play, get these Stalkers out, pump them out, get them out here. That's exactly what's happening right now. Eventually, he's just going to have too many Stalkers for Idra to deal with, so he's really wanting that Roach Warren to complete.
He's treating the Stalkers like they're Hellions. He's running around to the backside, target firing drones. Zerglings are en route from Idra, and HuK is going to be in a lot of trouble. trouble when those 12 Zerglings hatch, but it looks like he is target firing this hatchery. He's doing plenty of damage, and it looks like Idra was aware that that hatch might just fall if he wasn't careful. There's the good surround. He will pick off one of those Stalkers, but a lot of Zerglings are falling, and he is target firing these drones. Going to do one more shot, take it out. He is continuing to target fire drones, doesn't care about these Stalkers' lives anymore, just wants to get as much of an economic lead as he can.
And he does manage to take out quite a few drones there. It's going to put it 29-24 and about a 5 worker deficit there for Idra, and the expansion is going up here with a lot of sentries coming out now, about 5 of them. And here come the Lings in for the attack. 2 gateways up front, or a gateway and a forge. Lings are going to come in and see everything, so they are not going to make any sort of serious attack. Would have had some force fields going on, and
looks like just helping HuK out a little bit to take out his own destructible rock, saying, HuK, if you want to expand later, don't worry about it. That's on me. Looks like Idra is also reinforcing with a good amount of roaches. Going to try to swing forward to the front. Roach speed going down. We do see that Evo going down, and HuK moving forward with just sentries. This looks very vulnerable, but this can actually be an excellent timing, as he will be able to pick off a handful of Zerglings. A lot of force fields were thrown down, and it looks like HuK is going to swing back around. Has to be careful not to let those sentries get isolated, but he can do a lot of damage just by force fielding selective units. And now that a few Zealots are out for HuK, he will slowly begin to add on more Stalkers and continue to push.
And I don't know if HuK just dealt with the crater in the middle there, where you're sending some units down and you click here, and one just decides it wants to go the other direction. So a sentry was lost there by a few of those roaches in the back. And we are going to see Idra go ahead and take out these back rocks as well. And he's going to want to get that 3rd base down pretty soon here, as he is going to start well, I mean, his economy is about even right now with his opponent. But HuK's army is just continuing to grow, and I think there is going to be a mass that is going to be really scary here for Idra.
This is why people love the 3 Warp Gate into expand, but I've never really seen a player do it quite like HuK. Most players just do it very passively, cautiously advance forward with sentries and Zealots. But we saw that Stalker push really botching with Idra's play. We see that Idra's only just now slowly climbed past HuK in that worker count, and we also see Idra very actively spreading that creep forward. Again, that is the sign of an excellent Zerg player, but nothing has really been done with this layer with the exception of that roach speed. And here Hydralisk coming out. I think the first time we've even seen them at this tournament. And here comes HuK's push. Now that he has gotten that +1 attack upgrade, he will be in great position to do a big chunk of damage.
Yeah, I look at this army on my screen and on the mini map, and it just looks pretty scary. One thing Idra did get is a good look with this Ovi after the speed finished of the base. And hold on, here we've got the battle up at the front. So force fields to actually push the units in, but really it's going to just prevent them from retreating.
Oh, he is completely surrounded. He's trying to run away. Needs more force fields. There goes a huge chunk of units from Idra, but the players are still relatively even in terms of unit counts. There's not really that much more force field left from HuK. HuK is pushing a little bit too aggressively. I think he's on the creep. Those roaches can micro so easily, and he will be forced to pull all the way back. But in the meantime, he is adding on more Stalkers, more units that can deal with those roaches. And HuK having a few units to get caught behind. Exactly what he doesn't want to happen. And now that he is off creep, he will be able to force field and retreat.
Yeah, and there were a few more roaches coming out as well. And these, I mean, that was a heavy unit loss here for HuK. He's going to really have to try to power things up here and get his army back. And he is going to try 2 force fields to just say, you are not welcome here, and stop. He's got the observer out on the map to get a good idea what's going down. And I'm not sure if he even has any idea, just checking vision reel. He doesn't know about that 3rd base at all, but he's got to have an idea. You know, you're playing against Idra. You know what he's going to want to do. And Idra's just continuing to pump out units. Now, have he actually, here we've got the first Hydras coming out. And as a combination, this is looking pretty good for Idra.
Really, absolutely. It's going to be hard for Idra to lose this game, especially with his solid fundamentals. We do see the ground carapace is being researched. That range for Hydralisk is finally finished. And over in Camp HuK, I'm trying to poke around. It doesn't look like we see any robotics support bay getting thrown down. Looks like he's going to be relying largely on gateway units. He's getting Zealots with leg speed, an extremely interesting choice. Most players favoring Blink these days, especially players like Kiwikaki. But HuK has an observer, is scouting everything that Idra is doing, and seems comfortable that that is the correct choice.
As we do have the first Hydras joining the army here. That's a big, meaty front line, and HuK is going to kind of, it looks like he's just almost ready to go in there with the sword swinging, but he decides to pull back here. And as this creep continues to move forward, it will give a little bit more advantage to Idra fighting in the middle there. And down below we have the expansion starting to move out here, but already Idra's got the creep starting to spread, and he will try to deny that expansion as much as he can. It also gives him a little bit of vision. They're going to move in. He's going to try to get his Overlord away from there. He'll try to get his third base up.
And this is a very interesting choice by HuK. He is getting the robotic support bay that will allow him to begin Colossus production. Looks like he is destroying the rocks to the right, but has not yet really planted that Expo, as he does need to wait for the creep to deplete. And with this big push forward, he really should be waiting for that Zealot leg charge. He's putting a forward pylon down, but this is a huge army by Idra, catching HuK at a terrible angle and just ripping through it. There's the force fields to try to isolate just the roaches, but this roach Hydra mix might just be too strong. Those mortals are absorbing a lot of damage, but look at the gigantic army of Idra, a full 50 foot ahead of his opponent. There's very little HuK can do at this point.
Yeah, once we saw those Hydras reinforce all those roaches, it pretty much is looking nasty here for HuK, but he will continue, stop at his choke, turn around, and he doesn't really have a composition that works well, but it does any with this massive units. Really, right now, just Idra moving in and trying to pancake his opponent here up against his own base. Even a contamination on the Colossus. There's no way that it's going to come out, and that will stop it. And
there's the good game.
Gee, how smart was that Overseer? Dropping it on there. It's like, it's not going to happen. This base will be gone before that is done, and we'll be moving on. Great, great game.
That's the thing that's very tough to do with Hydralisks. If you mistake a time to attack, your Hydralisks are so slow they really cannot retreat. So that is very, very good play by Idra to be able to do that contaminate, to plant that on the Colossus, so that way he can continue to attack and doesn't have to worry as much about whether he should be retreating or not. And as we saw, Idra just taking the huge macro advantage. And people have been talking almost nonstop about the Roach as it relates to Terran play. But as it turns out, versus Protoss, the Roach is really what's helping out against force fields and just against armies in general.
I really like that matchup. We talked about the standard, the standard play that we were going to see, and certainly saw a lot of it right there. Idra, I think, playing exactly the game that he wanted to, and our next map is going to be Steppes.
And I think this is an excellent choice. Oh, and there's the crowd giving the cheer, of course. Great signage, amazing turnout today here at MLG in Washington, D.C.
And HuK's hoodie.
So Steppes of War, I think, is a very wise choice for HuK. He can literally do the exact same thing that he did last game and do significantly more damage. So I definitely enjoy that choice by him. We will be inviting the players to the game shortly.
And you're working on that right now. So this is, if you just joined us, welcome to MLG D.C. for the StarCraft 2 competition. Some great competitions going on all around us. Of course, the Halo, the Tekken, the Smash Brothers, their Reach tournament continues on today. And of course, the great turnout here, not only in player, but in fans for the StarCraft 2 competition. I have had an opportunity to go out there and just chat with a few of the folks. They're really excited about what they've been able to see, and how accessible a lot of this stuff is here in terms of just viewing and checking out the game. So we are ready now. If you just joined us, Game 2 of Idra versus HuK. Thank you, sir.
Now, Idra is going to be in a much more uncomfortable situation in that last game. The worst thing that really happened to Idra is that he had to make an extra sunken colony. He had to lose a few extra drones. But on this map, it's going to be significantly harder for Idra to really just rely on just small, gentle defense. Any attack at any point from HuK could lose the game, and I really think that the 3 Warp Gate play is going to be significantly stronger.
Color of Anger. This is going to be good. We're starting game number 2 right now. Steppes of War is the matchup. Idra can now, if he wins this game, he could put the stake of undefeated through the winner bracket down here on the floor of MLG D.C. And that would be a really comfortable position, not only for him, but his team, EG, in this tournament.
We do have Idra spawning in the top right as the blue Zerg, and a little bit of rain, it appears. And in the bottom left, we have HuK spawning as the red Protoss. Definitely think that HuK is going to have a lot of comfort on this map. This map just very, very well attunes to his style. The fact that his early probe harass gets to his opponent's base quickly. Yeah. The fact that even though he plays standard and even though he doesn't do anything too gimmicky, he's quite aggressive. So the fact that he can be aggressive, take an easy natural, and more importantly, take an easy third is going to definitely support him as the longer the game goes on.
Sean, speaking to me from like a player perspective, because you've been in a situation where you win a game, you lose a game, you're going up in the next game, and one thing I love when I cast with you is that you really do have a lot of that experience as a pro player back in Brood War, and when you suffer a defeat like that, that's a pretty this was a normal game. We went neck and neck on what we were doing here. How do you mentally prepare yourself for something like this? Is it your map selection? Is it just going in and playing your own game?
For me, it's the practice, not the few days before the tournament, but the practice about a week before the tournament begins and before then. Because honestly, what happens when you suffer some kind of loss is, kind of like when you lose on the ladder, you think, what could I have done to improve? What could I have done to do that a little bit better? At a tournament, that force is way stronger. So you mustn't fall to that trap. You must rely on what you are most practiced. So the key thing that HuK must do is to just not do any big changes. He did a pretty damn good game last game, had a very clear little mistake with that early attack that cost him the game. And if he just doesn't make that mistake again, he's in good spot to win, and he's trying to plant a pylon, but and Idra will manage to take it down, and Idra is going to be able to 15 hatch after his spawning pool on this map.
Only in StarCraft 2. Only in StarCraft 2 will you get a cheer from a crowd when a single probe gets eliminated trying to put that pylon down.
No doubt.
That's why it's a great game.
Crowd is quite pleased with themselves in that regard. There's the gateway finishing right now, and Idra going to be doing a little blocking of his own. Look at that drone planted right there. Doesn't want to let that cybernetics core finish, as that will allow HuK to have a nice little wall off in the Idra front. We see that in production, only 2 lings popping out right now, but this is going to force HuK to delay that cybernetics core significantly. There it finally goes down, but later than it should have.
And he's going to probably prove this out. He's going to try. Oh, he almost tried to get the gas steal off. He did try, but unfortunately, he almost was able to do it as he quickly went and pulled a probe off there to get the job done. And now that side core is going down. So, tried to make the most of that particular drone. Unfortunately, it just didn't work out. And we've got the Expo going up here for Idra with another queen being made to throw down there. And no more ling production, but we do have 2 more lings coming down here to just check things out.
And I do think that this isn't as weird of a situation as it might have felt for HuK. The fact that he lost that probe really just meant that he wasn't going to really build a pylon. And honestly, that kind of is nice for HuK because it means he doesn't have any sort of funky timing with his build. Losing 100 minerals to that pylon early on can screw your play up quite a bit. Idra now pulling back with those Zerglings. There's another spine crawler going down at the front. Idra is continuing to produce drones and creep tumors, but still, this 3-gate push from HuK is going to be quite difficult to deal with regardless.
Stalker moves forward to check the front door, sees that there are 2 Zerglings, not quite knocking, but kind of hiding in the bushes. He'll chase those guys away, and we'll kind of get an idea on at least where Idra is at here in his expansion. He is going to trade a few blows with the queen here, and actually might try to move his way in, and he will get past the Zergling as he micros it down, and this other queen will have to come. He does have a couple more Zergling pop, and he's got another sunken being put, or maybe it just finished, or he's going to move it. But this Stalker actually being very aggressive and at least making Idra pay attention to what's going on.
I mean, only HuK would you see do something like this. He's going to try to retreat, but unfortunately the queens are going to poke it to death. And in the meantime, it looks like the 3 warp gates from HuK are very, very close to finishing, getting sentries out of all of them. Don't want to spend too much money at this point because you do want that Expo up relatively early on, and I think Idra is feeling extremely comfortable. His lair is very close to done. No Zergling speed started yet. That's going to make it very dangerous to defend that push at the front, but the spine crawlers are going to help quite a bit.
Yeah, having 3 down right there and a little choke for you to get through on both sides and in the middle for the Zerglings, really, really nice. We'll see how the force fields will play out with this, as we do have about 4 sentries and a Zealot moving forward up against these 2 lings. He'll easily dispose of those. They are going to try to run past. They get nailed with 1 final hit by the Zealot, and we've got Spine Crawler defense now up for Idra, so no longer really having to worry about losing that expansion to any sort of early pressure.
And it looks like HuK warped in 3 Stalkers and picked off an Overlord here at the left, so Idra's going to be dealing a little bit with the supply blockage, but now that his lair is done, he is immediately getting a Hydralisk Den. This is the kind of style of play we've seen Idra do many, many, many times on this map, on other maps as well. Hydralisk, such an effective unit in the early game, and it looks like HuK is moving out with a very tiny tiny little push here. There's not too much from Idra to defend. He is still making drones in the production tab. Only drones being constructed, and surprise Idra, there's an attack at the front door, but it doesn't look like HuK is going to have enough to defend, as Queens and Spine Crawlers are very, very effective in the opening stages.
Yeah, and that's kind of a scary position. You know, do I go ahead and push? I've got, you know, maybe there's a timing window for, maybe there's an opportunity to go in and do it, or do I continue to play the game that I've got going right now? Everything is sort of safe and sound back at home, so really working on building up that army and getting things out. In the meantime, you know, Idra, for him, that's really scary because I don't have units. Do I make a bunch right now to be ready for this one? And then we have the Hydras out. So I'm really curious to see what the ultimate unit composition for Idra is going to be.
Hydralisks are so effective in the mid game, but they become increasingly less effective over time as Colossi, Blinkstalker, Storm come into play. HuK, interestingly, getting that very fast forge to get a plus armor upgrade. Very unusual. Twilight Council is completed. Curious to see what he will do with that, whether it be Zealot Legs or Blink. Most likely Blink on a map like this, where there's short distances that you need to be able to maneuver around properly. Assimilators also going down at the Expo. HuK being certain not to forget any food, and as usual, Idra gearing up to take a third base by destroying these destructible rocks.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, was it going to be Legs or is it going to be Blink? And it does look like Blink's coming down in the Twilight Council with that armor being researched, about halfway done as well. And we're going to start the creep spread right here, and I really, really dig this, these forward Spine Crawlers. I don't know that he's going to make a push, but he is going to stop this probe knowing that there is some sort of push, some sort of thing going on here by Idra right now. So HuK is going to kind of be clued off to that. These Spine Crawlers are going to get planted. Well, we got two up front just in the nick of time, but a lot of room to maneuver here.
Uh-oh, and there's not enough vision for HuK onto those other sides, and the Hydras and the Spine Crawlers are doing so much damage. HuK retreating along the only path that he can, but that is away from his expansion. This means his expansion is completely vulnerable. Only two Stalkers there right now, so HuK is in a very awkward situation. He's going to try to pick off all the Hydras that he can, but look at the push that's happening from Idra. Advancing forward with the Spine Crawlers. There's the money force fields, but there are not that many units out for HuK right now, trying to pinch these guys off. Beautiful, beautiful job there by HuK, but Idra is doing a Spine Crawler push at the 11-minute mark. This is a crazy, crazy turn of events.
He's going to continue to reinforce these Hydras here in the middle. He's got the Spine Crawlers just down below, but that's exactly a prime area for the units to warp in, so they've got to swing a wide angle coming around. More Hydras coming in, and you know what? You don't need much of a unit composition. Just keep throwing Hydras at him. He's going to work that Blink to get those Stalkers out of harm's way, and he'll continue to push forward. I'm guessing with these Spine Crawlers, as the creep has spread already to the front door of HuK.
And it doesn't look like Idra has anything else planned. He is quite broke on money, spending everything on this big push. But there are almost more Stalkers here than there are Hydralisks. So if HuK can control this properly, he will be able to defend this. But those Spine Crawlers doing so much damage, and the Hydralisks cleaning up. And here, look at the Spine Crawlers already gearing up to plant themselves at the front door. Who would have thought you could see a Spine Crawler push at the 12-minute mark in the game? The probes are now pulling off, but there's very little that HuK can do about this.
Yep,
and there's the good game.
Wow.
People like to say Idra is a macro-oriented player, but that is a stroke of genius strategy.
That was awesome.
The Spine Crawler push on Steps of War.
And you really have to, you break it down, and you know, you might be saying, gosh, we've got these 3 Spine Crawlers from Idra, like down here pretty early. It's a good way to, you know, keep that natural defense going. But I guarantee you that in Greg's head, he's like, these are going to be hitting his Nexus soon.
He's giggling by the time Spine Crawler 2 starts.
Exactly.
He's like, never going to know.
Watch this. Like, this is going to be so awesome when his probes are just getting raged by these 3. And, you know, that was a pretty awesome push, and really shows the power of the creep with the Zerg, you know.
Definitely.
Skipping a inject to get that first creep tumor out there, spreading creep with your overlords, like that makes me as a Zerg player happy, just seeing like it just slick all the way to the front door. Another thing was I really loved the confidence that Idra had in saying, yeah, well, I've not quite spread my creep all the way, and these Hydras are slow as hell off of it, but I've got the position here, and I'm going to push you in and out. I felt that HuK handled the ramp and the force field on the initial retreat very well. but then maybe not so well moving back in. What are your thoughts on that match, Dana?
I mean, that's something that a lot of Zerg players have known in theory to be true, but have not really practiced enough. Machine actually, from the very early days of even the beta, was using lots of spine crawlers for defense and then pushing with Hydralisks later on. But the problem that Idra seems to have solved is how to get enough drones to support that. Hydras are very, 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 very expensive. A lot of times you're tempted to make a bunch of Zerglings to defend with your spine crawlers or even make extra queens, but as you saw in that game, 3 spine crawlers, that's it. Only units used to defend, and as a result was able to have a monstrous economy for that gigantic push. Very, very well played by Idra. And I just want to note, in the losers bracket, winner of Slush Select will be playing against Liquid Tyler. The winner of Og Druby will be playing against Kiwi Kaki.
So getting down to the nitty gritty here, Sean, certainly. Some awesome matches still coming up.
And we will be going to a short commercial break before we catch up with some losers bracket action here at MLG D.C.